Hello, class. Let's now talk about lesson 2, the applied social science. In this lesson, we are now going to shift from talking about the introduction to social science to discussing now the introduction to applied social science. What are the difference between social science, discussing social science in general, to applied social science? All right, let's begin. Imagine how social science helps improve society. Something that is very interesting. Can social science help improve society? Now, how does that happen? That's what we are going to navigate through in this lesson. Through social science, better institutions, systems, and responses to societal issues have been offered to improve people's lives. Gani, if you try to look and analyze the movie Eternals, they don't really participate in people's conflicts unless deviants were involved, right? That's the whole plot of the story, or yeah, the point of the story. Why do they do that? It's because they want to improve social institutions and systems in order for us to improve in terms of medicine, in terms of governance, in terms of how we live together. How do we do that? Before they try to channel or they try to incorporate war. If there is war, there is improvement in medicine and there is improvement in the way people live. Innovations in technology, innovations in strategy, so on and so forth. So here we try to look into how social science better or how through social science better institutions, systems, and responses to societal issues are offered to improve people's lives, because that is something that we need to consider every single time we discuss about social science, and part of which is political science, right? So if you're going to talk about politics, if you're going to talk about governance, always remember that the main goal or one of the end goal of governance or the bureaucracy should impact the day-to-day living of people, not just with the infrastructures or the rate of the GDP, so on and so forth, kundili pati na pod sa kinabuhi gyud sa tao. Is it felt by the common people? So that's something that we need to consider as well. Societal issues are solved using theories, perspectives, and practices drawn from different social science disciplines. That is a fact. That is something that is given. You cannot solve a problem if you just simply rely on something that is not even tested, something that is not even acknowledged, by different institutions, by different groups of scholars that have become very useful in our understanding of how to improve the social systems that we have, the social institutions that we have. Now, in this particular lesson, we are going to define applied social science as a field of study and explain the different tracks of applied social science. Let's begin. Let's talk about social issues and social science. In this particular activity, we are going to be looking into how does applied social sciences help in understanding individual, group, and organizational issues and concerns. So those are something that we are going to focus on and center our attention in our discussion. Applied social sciences class help us in the application of the different theories and ideas of social science in understanding society. It also provides, or applied social sciences also provide alternative ways of solving society's diverse problems. So we all know that we are very different with one another, and we all know that we have different circumstances, experiences, problems, perspectives, beliefs, and principles. That's why applied social science will help us provide alternative ways of solving these problems out of the diversity of a particular society. Here are the different fields of applied social science. We have counseling, social work, and communication studies. All are very important disciplines, they're very important fields that are applied and more acknowledged and accepted in the 21st century than in the other previous centuries that we have. Counseling was not regarded as something useful in the 18th century. They'd prefer torture. Even in the 19th and early 20th century, social work was seen as a paganistic action, right? In the Bible, we consider it as paganistic. But nowadays, social work is as important as the roles of engineers building roads, of architects trying to plan how to construct a bridge, right? Social work is very, very important. And communication studies. If we do not have efficient communication skills, then ultimately we are not able to draw out, right, improvements of society. Now, let's talk about first counseling. Counseling, according to the American Counseling Association in 2010, is a professional relationship that empowers diverse individuals, families, and groups to accomplish mental health, wellness, education, and career goals. Counseling centers on the holistic part of a person, a group, a family, or community, right? We talk about the overall discussion of um, securing self-care and self-development, self-improvement, and self-growth. Counseling also talks about issues at the level of individual or families, one-to-one relationship with clients, and techniques backed by theories and research in psychology and sociology. Mobitaw that in a family setup, it is not really helpful if all the family members have opinions that are varying from one another, or that are one-sided with a particular belief or principle. Ayaw pagpatato kay hugaw na sa lawas. Or ayaw pag-uyab-uyab og sayo kay mabuntis ka dayon, di ka mag-eskwela. We need to remember that if we are going to give these opinions or these conclusions or hypotheses, if we consider it at that, this needs to be backed by a certain theory or a certain research in psychology and sociology. Sir, di ba nauso sa mong balay? Yes, I can relate. Di yun nauso sa iyong balay. But remember, people nowadays are more open to determining credible sources of researches, credible sources of evidences that will be used in arguments, that will be used in your reasoning, right? We don't anymore subscribe to the notion nga kung ang ginikanan maumoray matuman sa pamilya, because there are a lot of it is now widely accepted that even parents can also subscribe to what their children learn from school, from the internet, from different experiences at a young age. So that's part of counseling. We back up our techniques in counseling by researches and theories that are in relation to the disciplines of psychology and sociology. Now, let's talk about social work. According to the International Federation of Social Workers in 2014, you see what is being done by our source material. Naagit tayo mga citations and naagit tayo credible sources. Anyway, going back to the discussion. Social work kuno is a practice-based profession and an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of people. Meaning to say, our focus here is all about people. What are the branches or what are the emphasis of this particular focus on people? We now have the promotion of social change and development, social cohesion, and empowerment and liberation. So these are the things that we need to remember when we are going to do social work. Ay sir, social work, sir, mo man tigdala og mga bugas o mga dilata dito sa mga pobre. That could become the most disoriented definition of what a social worker is. Kaya we don't really subscribe to it. Social change and development, tingaman, at gubot ng pamilya. Tanawon na to if there will be empowerment by communication, or by communication, effective communication, or aduna by liberation of people from a very abusive state. I doubt it here in the Philippine context. But because of this movement, there is no emphasis on the importance of all these things to take place, because we are up for gender roles and gender equality. We are up to the discussion of how to better and improve ourselves as human beings in the context of providing alternatives to social issues that are being experienced by people in their day-to-day lives. Social work also improves individual and collective well-being. It addresses problems that occur at the structural level. And social work finds ways to address issues related to the system. That's why it is a process. When you say you want to liberate a person or a child, a woman, a wife, a mother, a father, a husband from an abusive experience, an abusive state, it is a process because you need to understand what are the issues that you need to address in that particular system. Is it related to the system that you are trying to find solution, find an alternative, or is it different? Does it need further research on the laws and the policies that are existing, or is it already existing that needs to be implemented? Right? That's the study of social work. Lastly is communication studies. Communication studies is concerned with how verbal and nonverbal messages create meaning and impact to human behavior. Remember that whether by words or by actions, by gestures, it will have an impact to human behavior. That's why communication studies does not only focus on how good you are with the usage of language, with the usage of words or vocabularies, but also how you are able to channel your intentions, your emotions, your intellectual capacity through those words, verbal and nonverbal cues, messages that could create meaningful impact to a person's behavior. That's communication studies. Communication studies studies how persons and groups communicate with each other. It also examines how organizations disseminate messages and communicate to the public, because that is something that is also in connection to communication studies. We also try to determine, we also try to analyze, to examine, assess, and evaluate whether this particular dissemination method is effective to speak to the general public or to speak to a particular person or group of persons. Now, how do applied social sciences help society? With all the discussions that we've had with communication studies, social work, etc., how do applied social science help society? After knowing or after being introduced to social science and now being introduced to what applied social science is going to be tackling in the coming discussions, how does this help society? Remember this question so that we can go back to this question. Annotate this. Write it in a notebook or write it on a piece of paper, and then let's go back to this question eventually when we have our discussions. Because truthfully, these are fields in applied social sciences that are commonly practiced. However, it is also evident that there is negligence of these fields in applied social science, right? So we have here different sources for our discussion, and I want you to also look into these sources so that we can also find meaning in terms of what we have discussed. All right, so you can go back to this lecture video as much as you want in order for you to discuss or in order for you to deepen your understanding of the lesson. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.